Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Corinna Cohn. I'm the tech lead for our delivery team, and we're building a claims application, and our first implementation with Camunda is an intake system.
Yeah, I was already so excited to introduce myself. I'm Sowmya Raghunathan. I'm an application architect in Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance.
Yep. So what we're hoping that you leave this session with is an understanding of what our problem is and how we've solved it. So in case you have a similar problem where you need interactive user input to make determinations about decision flows, maybe this is a pattern that will inspire you to come up with a similar solution. So let's take our typical use case as an insurance company. You're a customer, maybe an appliance in your kitchen has caught fire, it's caused quite a bit of damage, and you need to make an insurance claim. You're upset, your house is not in good shape right now, so you need the person that you're talking to be attentive to your needs, but also for them to have enough information to deliver a good solution for you. So they're going to ask you questions. Oh, your house caught fire. Do you have any idea of the cause? You think maybe it's the microwave that you just bought. Well, since we're talking about it, can you tell me the brand and model number, if possible? Otherwise, we might ask some general questions. Were you storing anything flammable in the kitchen that might have contributed to the fire? And really critically, is your house habitable? Do you need us to help you find a place to stay right now? When this is happening, you don't want to be asked irrelevant questions like, when is the last time that you had your roof inspected? Well, don't ask me that. I had a fire in my kitchen.
Is the clicker working? So this person is on the call. Probably we are taking a first notice of loss. Like Corinna said, we don't want to ask them any relevant questions because customer service is everything today in this digital world. So another aspect of it is the loss taker who is taking the call doesn't have to have any context of, hey, this is an auto claim, this is a home claim, I need to ask auto questions or home question. The intelligence is provided by the DMN, orchestrated by BPMN, and rendered by UI. So basically, all that the loss taker does is look at the question, take the answer, and the next question will pop up on the screen. So basically, the customer experience is the same, no matter who is taking the claim, whether it is an experienced person who worked there for 20 years or just a newbie who has just joined the company. And the questions are refined by the business analyst. It's predefined by the business analyst. And we all know that data is the new oil. We keep hearing it, and there is a lot of hype charts by Gartner, which we were bit to death with. Data is the new oil. So what we have today is, earlier was unstructured data. Everything was taken in a call. There was a bunch of notes. Now with this question and answer sessions, we have structured that data, and it has made machine learning endeavors very easy.
So before we get too deep into our technical implementation, here's a short overview of what you'll be seeing. Our solution involves 3 different technical components or areas. One is a BPMN. We're using the BPMN to orchestrate our DMNs and communication with the user interface. In our particular implementation, we're also using BPMN to handle storing the answers. There's also a set of defined DMNs that we use. Those are for defining the questions that the users will be prompted to answer. And the DMNs also map questions to their answers so that we can use determination to make what the next question should be for the user. Finally, there's a user interface component. This is what's used to render all of the questions that the users will interact with on the screen. It also handles sending the responses back into the BPMN.
So basically, before we deep dive into the technical implementation with this reusable survey forms, we thought it's a good idea to give an architecture overview. So basically, we make this possible. Any interaction with Angular and BPM happens through a service called Gateway. It is a very thin Spring Boot application that abstracts the complexities of Camunda REST engine. So before even I go into Gateway, what we do in Indiana Farm Bureau is we are a REST-based shop, and all the front-end applications, no matter what the back-end service is, may it be Spring Boot application, may it be OSGI services, we are fronted with API gateway, and all the front-end just has to talk with the API gateway. They don't have to know about the back-end implementation. So we didn't want BPM to be any different, and we didn't want to have forms clubbed into the BPM. As I told you before, customer experience is very important to us, because with InsurTechs chasing our back, we better be providing good customer experience. So this gateway helps us do that. So the user interface, Camunda, the user interface is, in our scenario, it's Angular. It can be anything. It can be React, it can be Ember, Vue, whatnot.
Android, Apple?
Yeah, Android, Apple, even .NET. So the gateway actually abstracts from the front end as to when to start the process, when to end the process, what are wait states, how to poll a process. None of this complexities has to be dealt by the front-end developers, because they already have so much to deal with customer experience, how to configure the route, how to make it look better in mobile apps, how to make it look better in web application. So no matter what the front end is, our processes would be the same. And to dig deep into that, we also have parent and sub-process. The parent process that the Camunda we implemented in such a way that the parent process is like a Lego block. All that it does is it takes care of orchestration. All the business implementation would be in the sub-process. So what it does to us is, if we are, if it's an internal user, say an adjuster or CSR is using the system, the screens would be different. Whereas if it's a mobile app and some user is entering the claim by himself or herself, the user experience will be totally different, but still have the same sub-processes, just rearrange the parent process in such a way that the user experience differs in different scenarios.
All right. So we'd like to switch and give you a demonstration of what the user experience is like. Hopefully this works, but as you know, with tech demos, sometimes they go awry. But let's say that you had an auto accident. We're going to have a couple of other screens, because this is like a prolonged wizard, but the claim taker is going to hit the screen, and they're going to ask, well, what happened? Can you describe the accident a little bit? We may find out that it's a single vehicle claim. So they click that button. What happens is that answer is sent back to our Camunda, hits a decision table, and figures out what the next question should be. Did the insured hit an object? Let's answer yes. Again, it's going back and hitting it. Let's say that the object was sort of, what did you hit? Oh, I hit somebody's mailbox. OK. Well, that's personal property to others. Was anybody injured when you did that? Not as far as I know. OK. So that was the last question that we answered, and you can see that the next button is highlighted. But let's say they're talking out and they realize, oh, actually, I need to change my answer. In that case, this is all right. But for some of these, if they change an answer, it asks a whole different set of questions. So let's say they find out it's a tow and labor scenario. Now they have to give a reason for disablement, fell into a ditch. They go next. We have a special question type here that is really just a script that the CSR reads. So please reference your claim number, et cetera, et cetera. If they click OK, there might be additional questions that they need to ask afterwards. In this case, they know that they may submit the claim directly from here, because this is a fairly simple case, vehicle disablement, and the user will be able to know, I can continue from here. So all of the decisions that we're making about whether the user is able to go to the next screen if possible, or to immediately submit the claim, or to prompt for new questions, these are all based on DMNs, and we're about to show you that. All right, OK. So we have, actually, can we go to the slides? There's an overview.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Great. So for our DMNs, we have a set of 4 DMNs that can drive all of these surveys. There's a questions DMN. That is just basically the questions that users are going to be prompted to be asked. For some of these questions, they're like radio buttons or drop-downs. So we have a supplementary DMN that we use, and we're just using it like a static table. We could have done this with databases, but it was easier to manage it, and we'll show you that in a minute. The beating heart of these DMNs is the next question DMN. Given a certain question, what sort of accident did you have? And an answer, actually, I just need a toe. But the combination of the question and the answer, we're able to determine what should be asked next. Finally, we have an evaluated answers DMN. In a case such as determining whether a loss is a total loss for a vehicle, we need to ask questions like, is it drivable? Did the vehicle catch fire? Any number of questions like that. And we use those to basically create a decision table as to whether or not what the condensed business value is, so that we can use that later in our decision making. So defining the questions, it's a directed acyclic graph. If you look at the screen, there's a very simple example of such a graph. The questions are nodes, so A, B, C, those are our questions. The answers that the user provides are the edges of the graph. And once we know a node position and their answer, so the edge, we're able to figure out where to go for the next node. This is really helpful for us when the user changes their mind and picks a different answer, because we just go and walk the graph again with all of the information that they've answered previously in order to make this determination. Now, I think that we can show our DMNs. Is that visible in the back? Is there any way to zoom? Well, so the questions DMN, all of these, by the way, have a convention. And in the upper left-hand corner, you can see this one is called total loss questions. That last portion with the underscore questions, that sets the convention for all of these DMNs. So the next time that we need to build a survey, as long as the DMNs are named correctly, we can just drop them in and use them without having to do any other coding. But for the questions, the critical part here is there's the label that shows you what's going to be asked. There's an ID so that we can uniquely reference this for further decision making. And there's a field type so that the front end knows what to display. The options, again, if you have a drop-down or a radio button, these are the constrained answers that the users will be able to choose from. The most important DMN is this questions DMN. Given two inputs, which is a question ID and an answer, we're able to determine what the next question is. If there is no next question, that signals that we've reached the end of the graph, and the BPMN can use that information to determine that they can leave the survey. Furthermore, because we're using these excellent Camunda DMN technology, we can have inline script evaluation inside of the answers so that if there's some information that the user has provided earlier in the claim process, instead of having to ask them for that information again, we can determine that automatically inside of the DMN. So in this particular example, the users are prompted to ask whether the vehicle is 10 years of age or older, but in the case that it's our insured vehicle, we should already have that information available. So it's answered automatically for us. And finally, we have these evaluated answers. So this is very similar to DMNs as you're probably using them. Just take some inputs and provide some outputs. But not all of the survey questions are relevant for decision making later. So this is just a way of squeezing that information into only the parts that we need.
So now we saw the four questions, four DMNs that we use to construct this survey form. But what's orchestrating this DMNs is a BPMN. So basically, you see here there is 2 scripts. That's nothing but the sole responsibility of it is to take inputs from Angular. So basically, as we have seen in the demo, so user answers the first question, and then they go on and answer the next question. So basically, that's been converted into JSON and gets into this BPMN. And then this script is just facilitating getting that JSON and converting into inputs that this DMN can handle. So basically, out of all those 4 DMNs, the very important DMN is the next questions DMN that Corinna showed, which is following this acyclic graph of determining what question need to be asked, what is the end of the question, and all those stuff. The rest of the 3, and the other one is evaluated answers. That is a typical DMN scenario. But if you have looked at the first 2 DMNs, that is the questions and the options DMN, that can be database. How many of you have dealt with DBAs and you'll really love that experience? Basically, imagine business analysts, dealing with them, talking about, hey, this has to be normalized, this has to be structured, and all those stuff. So we didn't want that pain for the business analyst. So if we give it to the hands of the business analyst, it's all packaged. So all that they have to do, deal with this DMNs. They don't have to talk to any IT infrastructure guys or anything. So basically, the prepare questions payload DMN is, again, preparing the outputs of the DMN and constructing a JSON and sending it back to the front end so that they can show the questions and answers nicely built on the screen.
So here's some of this in the context of how we use it in our claims-taking application.
So basically, this dynamic questions BPMN is extremely reusable, no matter whether it's claims application or it can be any other application. It can be any other project. It can be any other company. If you need a survey form, all that you need to do is write 4 DMNs and then drop it, deploy it, and this BPMN would take care of constructing the JSON. She will get to it. She will show it how flat the structure is. You can build as many survey forms as you want. So basically, the first notice of loss question is actually demonstrating that for us. So basically, if you see, the very first call activity here is calling the dynamic questions. So basically, the business here is first notice of loss. We are using the dynamic questions to do that acyclic graph or whatever that Corinna said, like to ask questions in a sequence. So basically, after all that is done, every time it will hit, hey, if there is more questions to ask, wait in a state so that the user can answer the next question. So if there are no more questions, the evaluate answers would be called, which is, again, a DMN. We are calling it from Groovy. We are calling the DMN using an ID, and then it evaluates, hey, these are the set of question and answers. What does it really mean in the business sense? How do we persist as an information that a database can take? Like, hey, if a vehicle is 10 years old, and if it is totally crashed, there is no point in taking it to salvage and wasting our money. We rather, say it's a total loss, and then give them a rental car or something like that.
Sowmya, you were saying how easy this is to drop in. Can I tell them that this is our second attempt at doing this?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. The first time that we did this, there was not as much reuse as we wanted. A lot of the DMNs had to be copied in order to do the second survey or the third survey. This became really difficult when we needed to add new question types because it meant a lot of refactoring. So we put our focus into doing a second version of this core module instead of having to do a lot of extra maintenance. How'd that work out?
So basically, there's an interesting story. Like, she's working in the application team. I'm part of architecture team. So as any other company, they're a little bit running behind the time. So they asked architecture team help to, hey, why don't you just take these like little bit clutterly coded DMN forms and then convert it into the new structured forms, which me and Corinna refactored. So basically, when the requirement came to us, I explained it to some of my developers, and they were like, why are you even giving this task to us? I mean, this is just data entry. This is Excel sheet data entry. Why do you even want us to do it? It's a waste of our time. So basically, this has proved out a couple of times very beneficial for us, even though there's time crunch always in the project. It proved that it can be given to business analysts who mostly deal with Excel sheets very well, better than any of our technical folks here. So basically, I think we ourselves had a good use case in our own company.
All right. Sorry, jumping ahead some because I explained some of these. So you might be wondering what the front end works with in terms of its data. The front end gets a payload that has a few pieces of information it needs to construct the user interface. It receives an answer if there was a previous answer for here, because every time the user answers something, the entire user interface is refreshed. So we get the previous answer, the field type, if it's a radio or text input, a label so that the claims intake specialist knows what to ask the customer, options of the drop-downs or the radios if necessary, and critically, the question ID. These are all used to construct basically what you're seeing an example of on the screen with the what is the claim type question. The front end returns to the BPMN portion a very, very small payload containing for every answer the ID and what answer the user provided. And again, this is just used as the input for that next question's DMN.
So as I've already illustrated in that BPMN, this is extremely reusable no matter what application it is, no matter what domain it is. You can use it with any kind of domain, insurance, financials, hospitality, whatever. And then you can create any number of survey forms with this. And as I emphasized before, all this is possible because of the DMNs and also this gateway. We don't need any kind of forms IO or anything. It is just a small single page, small Spring Boot application, very thin. There is no customization. It is just fronting the REST engine that Camunda provides. So basically, this decoupled architecture has helped us deliver a very good user experience to the user, and also we can do workflow automation. Best of both worlds.
So let's just run down the benefits really quick. As we've said over and over, these BPMNs are completely reusable for any survey. Business analysts can take the responsibility of adding questions instead of having to ask developers to do the work for them. Our question input types can be completely custom. We're not limited to the types of inputs that you would normally see on an HTML form. I showed you an example of one of those, which is a script type that our loss takers read to our customers. But we also have another that's in development right now using that case of a failed appliance. So that question type will be able to prompt our CSR to take all of the model and serial number information. The survey answers that evaluated decisions just leverages that DMN power. And again, the answers that we take, all of this information, is structured data that we can use later for machine learning and data mining.